Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to talk to you about something that I did a couple of days ago, and that's camping. Now, believe it or not, we don't just get a tent from a supermarket, chuck it outside, crack open a few cold beers and call it a good one. Uh, Camping is taken a bit more seriously here in Antarctica. So what I want to do is take you through some of the equipment and some of the methods that we use, and then you can come along and see how the camping went. All right, let's do it. What I wanted to do is show you the tents that we use when we go camping. I'm going to show you them while they're inside like this. So here's one that's already been put up. It's drying off from the last camping trip, and explain a bit how camping works here and the system that we use. So this tent is a TP tent, as you can see. This black bit at the bottom will be lying flat on the snow. So this bit will be, if you can imagine it, kind of like this, flat at 90 degrees. So there'll be a 90-degree bend here, and it will be buried in snow. This stops the tent blowing away. The entrance is here. It's like a tunnel that you would step through. A bit red in here. But you'll end up in the inner tent. You'll see that when we go camping. And the idea of having a tunnel is that it can be secured with these strings. There's some on the inside. It can be tied up so the snow and the wind don't get in. And burying the bottom bit prevents the tent from being lifted up. So what you would do is you'd build dig a trench, like a square trench, and put the tent in. So the legs here are aluminium, and they would go, there you can see it there, they would go down into holes in the snow. Then the black bit will go into this square that you dig into the snow. Tent sits in, you cover the black bit, and then you kind of pull the guy lines, make the tent taut, and then you get in. And we use a system of boxes. There are colored boxes like this. Each box has a different, they're wooden, they have a different color and contain different things. I'll explain about that later. So yeah, that's your basic tent setup. It can fit, depending on the size of the tent, it can fit 2 comfortably, 4 people sometimes. It depends on what you want to put in, how much equipment you're bringing, how comfortable you want to be. The way they're carried around is they're put on the sled and then pulled behind a skidoo. You can also manually pull them on a sled, but that's not really done anymore because it's tiring and very slow. So it's usually skidoos that are used. Yeah, so that's the basic tent. Now what I want to show you are some of the things that go into the tent, specifically the box system that we use. So I've set up these boxes behind me in a particular order. There's a reason for that, which I'll explain. And I'm going to go through each of the boxes and show you what's in them. So first of all, what you have to imagine is that we're inside the tent. So I can't actually film it inside a tent. There's not enough space. So you've got to imagine the tent. I'll kind of draw out the area of the tent. The door to the tent, that hole we saw before that you kind of climb through, would be here. This would be outside of the tent. So we have one box outside. This is the outside food box. So anything that can be frozen or refrigerated if it's very warm is kept outside. And this is also useful for taking off your boots. So you can imagine the tent is here, the wall of the tent, the entrance is here. So you would sit outside like this, take off your shoes, then take your shoes and put them inside or leave them outside, depending on what you want to do. Then you'd climb in like this, and you'd now be in the tent. The tent will extend all the way down to here, to this black box, and the wall of the tent will be here where I'm standing. So you can imagine the tent doing that, square like this. All of these are inside. Apart from that, that's outside. There is a reason we have this system, which I'll explain. But one other thing to say is, where do you cook and sleep? Well, you'd be cooking in between these boxes. I'll show you exactly how in a minute. And you'd be sleeping pretty much either side of the boxes like this. Obviously not on a wooden floor, but you'd have a plank and your sleeping system, and someone will be on the other side as well. That's basically the setup of the tent with the boxes. So let's go through each of these boxes. I'll start from the outside. We have the outside food box. As I mentioned before, there's no food in this. I'll just show you what it is. Inside there's, nothing, but normally you'd put food in there. Because I'm not going anywhere right now, there's nothing. It's usually brown or just natural wood like this one. Exactly the same box, nothing again in here because it's the inside food box. And then next we come over to this yellow box. Now this yellow box is called the tent box. Let's open this up. Everything nice and waterproof here. You can see a list of everything that it should contain. You've got some eating implements up there, matches, toilet rolls, torch, blanket, and all the rest of the stuff down here. CO2 monitor, quite an important one because we have to use them inside the tent to make sure that we're not in danger of carbon monoxide poisoning. Let's take a look inside this. So here we have the matches as mentioned before. We've got some flasks here, drink out of, some bottles, cutlery. I'm not going to take too much out. So head torch and alarm clock, spare batteries, bowls, and I've put bowls. Okay, I've put everything back. Let's move on to the next box. CO2 monitor needs to be collected. It's not actually in there, so it's kept in a case and it's collected just before you go out. Now let's look at this, which is called the POTS box. So here you've got some of the camping equipment in here, or all of the camping equipment. You've got the lamp, the stove, some pans, some tubes, filters, basically things to repair your stove with and repair some of the other things in the tent with. Cooking board, which I'll show you. The cooking board, this is what you rest your stove on. So there's a ring here and the stove will sit there to stop it moving about. And it's to stop things dropping onto the tent floor, which could potentially start burning things and cause issues. So where do you put this? Well, it's quite a clever system. You put it here. So in between the boxes, like there you go. So now it rests between the boxes, it's not touching the floor. So the heat is not going directly into the ground and not melting anything underneath it. It just stays on the board. Quite a useful system. The next thing we have here are these. These are barriers. So one goes here, there's a slot in the box. And another one here. And what these do will prevent things from falling off. It's quite clever. Now let's get the stove out. Here you can see the stove placed on top of the cooking board. It's not going anywhere in there, and even if you knocked it, it's going to hit that. So it's fine. Cooking ring will go on top and the legs will lock. So the legs will go in this hole. I'm going to have to stop filming to do this. I fitted the cooking ring on top. That's not going anywhere. You can see these are securely fixed up here. Goes through a hole and then it fits into the primer stove at the bottom. That's not going to go anywhere. Now to light this, you would seal this, then pump fuel using this, put some methylated spirits into here, light it. Now that you don't actually burn the methylated spirits, the main fuel is in here, but the methylated spirits get this hot enough for the fuel when it comes up through these pipes. So the methylated spirits will be burning here, heating all of this cooking head, a bit hard to film here, heating all of this, and it will vaporize the fuel, making it easier to light. And you'll eventually hear a note change and the fuel will begin lighting. So once you've got your fire going, you can then put your pot on the top. Well, you put it on top and just be cooking, sitting down next to it, kind of like where I am. And that's your basic cooking system. So let's now look at the rest of the POTS box. Here we have some fuel. in this bottle. We've got some, what is this, Primus spares. So we've got spares for the stove. These are used for this thing. This is a Tilly lamp. It's an old-fashioned lamp. It's wrapped. It's protected with this green thing. I'm not going to remove it, but you can imagine those oldie, worldy lanterns like that. Yeah, with clear glass. This also uses the same fuel as the stove. It's pretty much the same concept. You pump this and then it will light inside. You also use MEFs, if I remember correctly. But anyway, you'd hang it up the top of the tent, and that'll provide you a light and a bit of warmth. That's basically the pots box. Oh, here we've got some methylated spirits. It comes like this. Let's take a look at the last box. Well, there's not really anything I can show you, unfortunately, but the last box, I haven't got one with me, but the last box would be a radio. So you'd have your radio right at the back by the back wall, and you'd use that. You'd have your antenna set up outside, and you'd use that to call back to home base, basically. And yeah, that's basically it. That's the tent setup. This all gets dragged on a sled, which is attached to a skidoo. You can also haul it manually, but very few people do that. You're not going to get far. So most people just choose the skidoo. And there's other things that fit on the skidoo. There's quite a lot of things. There's fuel canisters, the tent, which is, well, basically that thing there, that red thing, look how long that is. You've got to fit that. You've got to fit your pee bag, which is your bag containing your sleeping material. So it looks a bit like this grey bag. It's about that size. So depending on, in fact, these are pee bags, depending on how many people you're going with, you're going to need this for each person. So there's quite a lot to pull, which is why people generally just use skidoos to drag a sled rather than manually doing it and Nordic skiing your way with a sled across like your Scott of the Antarctic or something. You can do that. There are some trips that allow that, but mostly it's skidoos because you can get further and it's, well, in my opinion, more fun. Okay, I'm going to put everything away. Hopefully that's explained the camping system that we have when we go out in the field. Let's go camping! As I mentioned in my first video, because of crevasses, we couldn't get out into the field and go to the normal place we usually camp. So unfortunately, we camped by a fuel silo. The fuel silo was about the only place on station where the snow was deep enough to let us put up a tent properly. It was a gorgeous day though, so none of us really minded. We began by digging a shallow square hole. Unfortunately, I didn't film that. And then deeper holes at each of the square's corners, ready for the tent legs. The first step was to unroll the tent, then place 2 of the legs into the deeper holes we dug on one side. Once they were firmly in, we stretched the tent over and made sure the other legs were firmly in too. Next were the snow stakes. You can see how long they are. They go deep into the snow. You can also put them in horizontally if the snow is too soft or the wind is very strong. The guy lines are then pulled taut. Now you need 2 people for this ideally, 1 at each side, and you pull together to make sure that the tension is equalized, and this lets the tent stand tall and proud and gives you the maximum amount of room inside. The final step is to shovel snow onto the bottom of the tent. This is to stop the wind coming underneath and lifting up the tent. It also makes it warmer inside. With all that done, I got inside and began receiving the kit. The first things were the wooden planks. These are the planks that we sleep on. There were 2 of these, 1 for each side of the tent. Next was the central plank. This is where we cook on and where the boxes rest on. Once the central plank was in and arranged neatly, it was time for the boxes. The first box in was the pots box. This is the blue box and it contains the camping stove, so quite important, and the Tilly lamp to provide lighting. We don't have a radio here because we're on base and it would be a bit pointless. Next is the yellow box, which is the tent box, and this contains our cutlery and matches to light the stove. The last box in was arguably my favourite. It's the food box. So you can see it's got a blue pad on top And this is for sitting down on if you want a higher position to sit on, take off your shoes or something. And with all the boxes neatly rearranged, it was time for my favourite part, making dinner. This was pasta with some nice cheese and oat cakes I brought along. So, I hope you found that informative. It was a really good day, I enjoyed it, and a good night. We talked amongst the group, it was really good getting to know some of the guys. So, that's it from me, and until next time, I'm off to try and find that polar bear.